Hi, I'm Tina Price-Johnson and I run All Inclusive Wills. I specialise in bespoke estate planning, will writing, powers of attorney and advanced medical healthcare directives. I want to help you understand what happens when you die or a loved one dies. In this video I'm going to concentrate on inheritance tax. When you die, everything that you leave behind is known as your estate. That is everything that's held in your name. Inheritance tax is paid by your estate, not by the beneficiaries, and currently is at a rate of 40%. There are allowances which are available to everybody, which means you can leave a certain value of estate before any inheritance tax is payable. The first allowance is called the nil rate band, and that is currently frozen at £325,000. This is an allowance which covers absolutely everything that you might own, no matter what it is. The second allowance that's available is called a residential nil rate band allowance. That's only available if you own your own home and you are living in it. It's also only available if you leave it to your children, your grandchildren, or down that direct lineal descendant pathway. Adopted children are included as well, but stepchildren are not included in this pathway. The residential nil rate band allowance is £175,000. Okay, so let's see how this might affect you. Every individual has the nil rate band allowance, so everyone has £325,000 allowance. People who own their own homes, who can leave it to their children or further descendants in their direct bloodline, have another £175,000. If your estate is above either of the values that apply to you, then your estate will have to pay inheritance tax. And that has to be paid before any gifts are given out. Every estate has to pay what is known as their testamentary costs, which is everything that is about dealing with you dying, and all of your debts. People who are married or in a civil partnership have an extra form of allowance available to them, and this is called the double spousal allowance. Basically what that means is if you leave everything to your spouse or civil partner in the first instance, or you inherit everything from your spouse or civil partner, this also means that the estate hasn't used any of its allowances. So the nil rate band allowance and the residential nil rate band allowance are both transferred to the surviving of you. So the one who is inheriting everything in the estate also inherits the allowances that are available. There are 3 different values of allowance that this can lead to. For example, if you don't own your own home and you haven't got any children, then the doubled allowance would equal £650,000. If you had children but your spouse or civil partner didn't, they didn't have a residential nil rate band allowance to pass over, and therefore the value of allowances to your estate is £825,000, and that is contingent on you leaving the house that you own to your children. If you don't do that, then you lose the residential nil rate band allowance. So if you and your late husband, wife or spouse or civil partner did have children together and you did own your own home, then you have doubling of both allowances, so your estate has £1 million of allowances available before inheritance tax kicks in. I always find it's easier to understand something when you use examples. In the first example, Robin and Marion have been married for 65 years, and Robin leaves everything to Marion when they die. This means that there's no inheritance tax payable on Robin's death. However, when Marion dies, she has inherited the inheritance tax allowance from Robin. They didn't have children. Therefore, it's only the nil rate band allowances that are doubled, so Marion has £650,000 of allowances available to her. It doesn't matter whether they owned their own property or not, because they don't have children to leave to, therefore the residential nil rate band allowance isn't available to them. Okay, secondly, Paul and Andre have been civil partners for 15 years and they do own their own home. They have 2 children together. Paul passes away and leaves everything to Andre. This means that he's also left both of the allowances to Andre, and Andre's estate will have £1 million available to it. There is no inheritance tax payable on Paul's estate at all. Thirdly, Tyra and Naomi are not in a legal relationship, and therefore they count as single people. They may have been together for 40 years, but they still count as single individuals when it comes to inheritance tax allowances. They have 1 child together and they own their own home. Tyra leaves everything to Naomi when she dies. However, as they're not in a legally recognised relationship, they only have £500,000 of allowances before inheritance tax kicks in. This is because they own their own home and they have 2 children together, so the residential nil rate band allowance is available. Tyra didn't use her residential nil rate band allowance, and because they aren't married, it can't be passed over. This means that Tyra's estate is going to be valued, and then there will be inheritance tax payable on it. And the same thing will happen for Naomi's estate when she passes away. It's important to know what will happen if you don't actually have a will, because there are set amounts that people can inherit as spouses or civil partners. If you don't leave a will, then your spouse or civil partner is only entitled to the first £270,000 of your estate. Everything else will get split in half between any children that the person who has died may have and their surviving spouse or civil partner. This can have a significant effect on the allowances that are available to the estate, which means it will also affect the allowances that are transferable to the surviving spouse or civil partner. It's good to bear in mind that the inheritance tax rate is 40%, which is a very high amount. And if you don't have a will, check out my video on intestacy to see who will inherit, as these are also the same people who will have to be going through your estate and working out how much you have and how much tax might be paid. A will is the only way to ensure you know how your estate's going to be left and what allowances are going to be available to it. I hope this video helps you to understand a little more about what will happen when you die and what your loved ones might be facing. Please share this video so that more people have access to the information that they need. Any questions or comments, please put them in the boxes below and I'll get back to them as soon as I can. And subscribe for future videos. Thanks for watching and see you soon.